All right, everybody. Welcome to the Friday night live calling show with your host, me, Mr. Rob G. We are in the building here on a fantastic Friday, feeling good. As you can hear, my voice is sounding marvelous and fantastic after 2 months, probably 2.5 months of fighting whatever that was trying to strip my voice away. Now I'm back in the building and doing well. I hope you guys are doing well. Also, as we are here on a TGIF, thank God it's Friday. I know a lot of you work during the week, and today's the day that you kind of want to kick back, relax, get ready to wind into your weekend, and I hope you have a great one. And also, I hope that you watch this show and then also tomorrow night's show, which is the After Hours radio show, because we got something for you tomorrow night as well. We are back. We are back. I wasn't even going to do this show tonight. I'll say that, but the government dropped UFO files on our nuggets. They dropped UFO files on our head today, and we're going to go ahead and look through those together. I took a sneak peek at some of them. Some of them are very compelling. Some of them we've seen before. Some of them look like some of the videos that were released in the last few releases here. So it's going to be a mixed bag, I think. We will also try to get into the NASA audio that was released as well. And the last time they did the release, it was at probably about an hour long of NASA audio. So if it's that long, we won't be doing that. Once again, definitely want to thank you guys for coming on in and joining the show here. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and bring up our slides here for the show here tonight. All right, the Friday Night Live call-in show. We actually have a phone number here at the Social Dig, and you should all have this in your phone. I'm telling you, if you have a phone, and most of you do, go into your contact list. Put this number in there under Social Dig or Mr. Rob G. Either way it goes. Area code 856-843-3444, or that would be 856 the dig if you're in the United States. If you're outside the United States, you would dial 001 first, then 856-843-3444, or that would be 001-856 the dig. We totally appreciate it. It's a 24-hour line. You can actually call, you can text it, you can send pictures maybe of UFOs or some anomalous thing that you may have taken a photo of or video of. You can leave a voicemail, 3 minute limit. And sometimes it's just cool to call and say hi sometimes, right? So that is definitely there for you guys to do that at any time. We'd appreciate any input or any. Also, let me say that any ideas for the show. Say, I thought of this. This would be awesome if you did that, Mr. Rob G. Go ahead and leave that on the message line and let me know, and or text it to me, and I will receive it, and we will definitely take it all into consideration. Also, we are still on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I know recently we just hit that 700 milestone, which is awesome. Let me give it up for you guys. Let me give it up for you guys. All of the longtime subscribers, supporters, and then the new ones who have come around recently. I just have to, each one of you are valuable to what it is that we do here. And I definitely just wanted to make sure that we recognize you guys because none of this works without you guys. And you are all the type of individuals that love to have these type of conversations. Conversations that move the needle because it's these type of conversations that are going to get us to that next stage or through that next phase post disclosure. Yeah, it's fun to see UFOs. It's fun to, imagine that these extraterrestrials are visiting here. It's all cool, right? Just like some of the videos we're gonna watch here tonight. But the question and the mission here is, what do we do next? Okay, all the data's on the table. Now, what do we do? Now, where do we go? That's the focus of this channel. It's not just talking about things that are unproven at this point. We don't like to dwell on things that aren't proven at this point, right? And we don't speak from an angle of someone that would know it all. I feel like we're all on the same mission. We are all trying to figure this out together. No one has the answers to this. If you look around the community, you will see individuals who come across as if they know the answers, and that's not right. Run away from that. Run away from that fast. It's more fruitful and I think impactful to kind of talk this thing through and figure it out together. So that's what we do here. So if you're new, we'd appreciate you guys coming on and hitting that subscribe button as we are on that road to 1,000 subscribers. And if you've been here for a while, you just subscribed recently, thank you again. And please consider hitting that like button for this video here. And leave a comment if you can as well. Hype it up as well. We want to get these conversations out there to the rest of the people who are curious about what it is that's going on, why these things are here, and what do we do next. If those three things interest you or interest someone that you know, make sure that they watch these shows or they come in and join the conversation. All right, awesome stuff. Let me see. Memberships are available on this channel. You can click the description. It's in the description of every video that we have here. So you can become a social soldier. What that does is help support this channel, allows us to pay for subscriptions and the types of things that we need to do to put on these shows. So any support helps. That super chats, super thanks are always helpful. Anything you can do, and really just you being here is help and support enough. So any way that you're able to help, we'd appreciate it. As we get ready to get into the show, but let me I know a few people came here. UFO TJ, I saw you out there. Appreciate you coming on in to the show bright and early. Also, Patch Pirate, I see you out there. Thanks for coming on in. Lisa Piper, thanks for coming on in as well. Human Data 8, appreciate you showing on up. Actually, let me bring you guys all on the screen here. That's UFO TJ right there. That is Patch Pirate. Appreciate you. That is Lisa Piper. Thanks for coming in, Lisa. Again, that is Human Data 8. Thanks for showing up. There's Cosmic Joe. Thank you for coming in, Cosmic Joe. Appreciate you coming in. Dead Fish Cheese Spread says Tranche 4. Right. They're calling it a tranche. We're calling it could be a tranche or a dump. Right? Depends on what it is. Depends on how we feel about what's in there, right? Tongue in cheek, it could be a dump, as Roger Murray has hinted to in the past. Cosmic Joe says, like receipts that don't really exist also. You know, I'm a receipts guy. I'm all about receipts. And actually, we have some receipts tonight. As awesome as this is why I'm intrigued about this particular dump here. You know, I'll just kind of say this real quick. I kind of felt like, well, I knew I had a sighting. It's going on almost 4 years now. This coming August will be 4 years since my big UFO sighting. And I've been waiting within these government dumps, and then just videos that they had been releasing previously, like maybe ones Jeremy Corbell's put out, others have put out, and I've been waiting to have my sighting corroborated because I know it happened. I filmed it. A lot of people out there have seen it. A lot of people agree. But then you had skeptics out there that still questioned the nature, right? And being that I experienced it, so I knew what I saw, and I knew as well, because I did research on it, that there were a lot of other similar type objects to what I saw. So I knew then that the government had to have data on this. And I'm going to make a case for that a little later. I'm going to do a separate show as well, cataloging my actual sighting, but this bared some fruit. This drop bared some fruit. Let me go ahead and see. Deadfish T Spread said, did you watch Ryan Graves today? He brought in an air traffic controller. No, I did not see that, Deadfish T Spread. I know it's a lot of conversations going on out there. I kind of not on top of everything right now due to doing some work stuff, which is why, you know, we've pretty much just been doing the after hour show. I have some training and some other work related things that are going on. Cosmic Joe, dump equals trash pile. It does. Yeah, yeah. That's the joke. That's the inside joke, Cosmic Joe. And Lisa Piper says it was a load, a big dump. Whoa. Okay, so you must have seen everything here. I've seen some of the stuff, and I gotta say, based off what I saw, there's a couple compelling things in there, and we'll go ahead and make sure that I'll point them out as we go through some of these videos. So we've done this pretty much for each and every UFO dump so far, and we'll continue to do that. So we'll go ahead, play the videos here tonight, make some comments on them. You know, you guys are out there. If you have anything you want to say about a particular video, make sure you put that in the chat here, and we'll make sure that we bring it up on screen. Let's not waste any time at all. Let's go ahead and get into. Well, actually, let me. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Let's go ahead and get into the first video, and then we'll kind of play it by ear tonight. Here's the first video. I think there were 16 total files, between 16 and 19. So we're going to look at 1 through 10 right now. And we're going to go one by one. So let's go ahead and start out with the first video that was in the fourth government UFO file release. Let's see, let's bring that up. Some of these may or may not have sound. And I will, let me bring these up big screen for you guys. All right, tracking an object. This was definitely one of the weird ones for me. I looked at this and I said, and that's another thing, right? I think when we talk about the world, and especially a lot of people who are just kind of coming into the subject, they may be expecting saucers. So they may look at this video like, okay, what is that? It's something flying through the air, but what is it, right? So we understand that, especially within the community, that some of these objects most of these objects, I'm going to say probably 90%. I'm going to give 90% of the objects that we see are unmanned type of objects. I'm gonna call them like I don't want to call them drones, right? Because of the obvious reason. I'd probably more so want to call them probes. I think that might be a better word for what these things are. I think that most of these things are unmanned. Some of these things seem like they are the actual entity themselves. So, and I think that's once again when we talked about Skywatcher, um, the organization that was put together, they had built like 9 different classes of objects, and I thought that was very smart because I think there's definitely um, a recurring theme when it comes to the type of things that we're seeing. And I think they pretty much nailed it with the categories that they had come up with, and we keep seeing those same things over and over again. So that's going to kind of drive some of the points that I have here tonight about some of the other things that we are going to see here. But once again, the only I think the worst part about all this is that not a lot of data, well, none really, as far as data goes. Normally, when we have releases that come from third parties and then later corroborated by the government, usually come with information, right? So the government, they're releasing files, they're blacking everything out, as you see all the black boxes on the screen, which are covering up things that would likely give us a lot of data about what we're seeing, how fast it's moving, what direction, a lot of the things that we would normally use to try to figure out if it's something to, anomalous or not. Is it moving really fast, or is it very close to the camera, which makes it look like it's moving fast? Won't be able to tell that. I saw this, right? I don't know what you would call that. Is that could definitely just be a camera artifact. The little glitching thing, and I think that happens. I know for sure on a few of these different videos, and it could very likely just be a camera artifact, frame rate, or it could be the object, right? And so the thing is when you see it glitch, I'm looking at like the background, for instance. Does anything else in the image in the frame glitch? When I tried to pay attention to that, it appeared that only the object was glitching, right? We know these things phase in and phase out, these anomalous objects, whatever that means. If they're literally phasing in and phasing out, or are they cloaking momentarily? We don't understand that part of it, but we know that they do that. So to see something like that glitch, what it does remind me of, if you remember the Ariel School kids, I believe it was the Ariel School kids. It could have been them or the Westall kids. It was one of the school encounters where they talked about. I think that's over. Let me come up on screen here. Where they talked about the extraterrestrials once the craft landed at the school, and they talked about two. I want to say that was Ariel School. That two of them came out. One of them was standing on the craft. The other being was on the ground and was kind of stuttering and moving back and forth in like a stuttering sort of motion, right? That's what the kid stated. So we know that there's that sort of behavior when it comes to the phenomena. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say if that was an artifact of the film or not. So that was video one. That was video one. One of the more compelling ones, I would say. Let's go to. Let me remove that and get us to the next one here. Some of these, it seems like they couldn't get a lock on it, or maybe they were looking at something else and then noticed the object, because you'll often see nothing like you see now, just kind of scanning the skies. Then you'll kind of, okay, now this is one of the more compelling ones, and one of the ones we'll talk about tonight. This is very compelling. There's various reasons why, and if you've been around this channel long enough, you might already be able to answer why this is so spectacular. To me, this is one of the gems as far as what was released. And I will explain to you why. Look at this. Maybe I can pause this. Okay, I'm going to try to pause that. Okay, okay. What we are seeing here, and let me try to come back up here real quick. What we are seeing here, my interpretation, is we are seeing a bunch of individual objects. So we're seeing a formation of individual objects here. Why is that important to me? It's important to me because if you've been around the channel long enough, then you know that my sighting was very similar to this. And actually, I want to say they're exactly what these things are. And I'm going to do a whole separate video about that. I'm going to like really dive deep because I've done a few videos already on my sighting. And there's a lot of things, dots that have been connected, and I have been waiting for the government to release something that mimicked what I saw because I knew there was no chance that they didn't have data on these things. And in release number 4, here it is. What you're seeing right here, I filmed these objects. Now, in this, I want to say there's definitely more in this video here, in this formation than what I recorded. However, a lot of people were pretty just shocked when I said I recorded 47 objects at once in a formation. That was my sighting. 47 objects at once in a formation back in 2022. I have it on film and I'll be showing it. But there's a whole thing behind that because I put it out there in the Twitterverse to allow skeptics and everyone to kind of examine it. I went ahead and submitted it to MUFON, and they ran their investigation on it. And as far as the skeptics go, Mick West actually messaged on the post. He took a look at it, so it was compelling enough for him to take a moment and take a look at it. Here we go, Cosmic Joe. This is very similar to your video, Rob. Cosmic Joe, these are the same things. These are the same things. So and I gotta say, this video is pretty good as far as depicting, or showing what these things are. However, whatever filter they're using, it still isn't giving you everything. But being an eyewitness to these things, I can tell you that these are exactly what I recorded. And there's a whole thing behind these because these things are common. And if you want to know the truth, I'll point to these because I didn't know this video was coming up so soon. So maybe we'll come back to this one a little bit later, and I'll kind of go more in depth and talk about why this video matters. But just remember this video, and we'll keep. I'm going to continue to let this one play so we can get through some of these, and we'll come back to this one later. Once again, one of the gems. Now, I don't know how, some people are going to feel who may not have a connection to any of these videos or just hoping for more clarity. I may look at these and say nothing burger. Looks like that one's over. So I'm going to put that one aside and we'll move to the next video here. And we will come back to that one in a moment. It's the next video. Now, stuttering, right? This one is also doing that glitching stutter. See that? Okay, is that frame rate? I don't know that it is. Look at the background. The background, there are no anomalies in the background, right? You're getting smooth movement from the objects in the background. This object, for whatever reason, is kind of glitching, right? We'll go ahead and go back to the video's almost over here. Start that over. Once again, the glitching. If you can rule out frame rate, then that's obviously anomalous, right? And part of the spoiler alert, I guess, is for me. Objects like these single white objects, these single white objects are, in my opinion, from my own experience with my encounter, these single white objects are the same things that you saw in that formation. It's just a lot of them together. So, and obviously, I've been researching this and studying this for the last 4 years. These white objects, egg shaped, if you want to say, these spherical, oblong, sort of egg sort of shaped objects, these are the things that you saw in that formation. That is my opinion, from my own experience. But I think you could probably take that to the bank. So when we're seeing these things individual, sometimes you see two or three together. Their information's as big as what we saw in the previous video. Let's move on to the next video here. Once again, this looks, I believe this is the one that splits apart. So I think this is like two objects. Now, so for this object, right? If you look at the bottom of this object, you see a little black area, right? That's very important. I think that is very important. It's something to keep in the back of your mind, and you'll know more. I'm gonna once again I'll put together a separate video, which will focus primarily on connecting the dots and pretty much validating what one group of these things are. Going back to Skywatcher, literally for the public being able to validate one particular group of objects that are commonly seen that you can take to the bank as not made by humans. And I think that's kind of what we're doing, what we're going to be able to do here with these UFO releases. As you notice, a lot of them seem to be the same type of objects. So if you were taking these videos and putting them in different baskets, right? You're going to have a bunch of ones with the spherical white objects. You're going to have a bunch of ones with that look like these jellyfish sort of things. You're going to have a bunch of ones that are weird, like some of these other ones we're going to see. And once again, that's why I think Skywatcher was on to something by having those classes, because I think it really allows you to figure out that there's a certain number of different type of things, and once you get to that determination or come to that conclusion, I think what you can start figuring out going after that is which one of these types of objects are likely be or have something, what type of objects are actually manned objects versus unmanned. And I think you'll find out just from, from things that I've looked at over the years, is that most of these categories of objects are unmanned objects. Now, one thing that I thought about that I thought was pretty interesting, just to kind of put it in perspective, right, is think of just think of like our military, right? We have jets, we have helicopters, we have different types of unmanned drones, we have submarines, we have all these different vehicles. And if you had a list, you'd have a certain amount of vehicles that we have that serve different purposes. And I think what we'll end up finding out is once we have these things all categorized is that these different objects perform different functions. So either that, or you're seeing the same type of objects, meaning probe type objects from different species of extraterrestrial. So, like these white spherical objects could be probes from one particular extraterrestrial species. These jellyfish ones could be probes from a different type of species. That's how you start getting, kind of moving the ball down the field. And I think we'll be able to do that the more and more we're able to categorize these and put them in the appropriate boxes. Let's move to the next one here. This one, I'm unsure if this is just a cigar-shaped type object is what it appears to be. Or are we looking at something maybe disc-shaped from the side? It's hard to say. Okay, I think that was a short one. Let me play that again. And is it multiple objects? You see it locked on that. So what is that? Is that a jet then? Is that potentially a jet? Because I did see some other objects fly through the screen. That's the one thing without having context. It's hard to know exactly what we're seeing here because you see a couple, those two things right there, right? I'm assuming that's probably then what they're looking at. So the thing they lock in on, is that a jet? Is that simply a jet? However, I think you can say that the two things, those two things, right? Let me see if I can get that. Let me bring that back here. Okay, so three things in this image here. The one thing at the top that the box locks on, then the two things that zip across the screen. I'm feeling like potentially those two things at the bottom are the anomalous objects, right? Or are they all anomalous objects? Very interesting. Can't really say one way or the other. That's the messed up things that we don't have enough data to really know. I mean, obviously those things zip across the screen. You know, we could assume that those are the anomalous things, but then the box does lock on this other object. It looks like it could be the side view of a jet potentially. It would make sense if it, was able to lock on that particular object. It's really hard to say. This one, I don't know why they released this one here because I thought they released this on the last UFO file drop. This one here. Which could once again simply be just a camera artifact. I think that one I think that one was different because if you remember the last video from the last file drop that looked like this, it was moving around. Remember it had the trail behind it and we were talking about that. This one doesn't. So this is definitely a separate, it's not the same video, it's definitely a separate video. So let's take a look at this again. Once again, I don't know that I would be hung up too much on that shape because literally that shape could simply be an artifact of the camera. So I don't know that I would be too hung up on that. Not enough data for that one, obviously. Let's check out the next one here. Then I'll I'll load up the next batch of videos here in just a moment. Okay, so are we looking at the object that flew right past the screen? Missed it. Hold on, see if I can catch it. Okay, briefly, whatever this blob is here, I'm assuming this is the anomalous object zipping past the screen here. Pretty interesting, pretty interesting. And the other object, I don't know if that's the same object. Did the blob itself turn into the smaller object, or is that two different objects? Let me know what you think about that. Did that blob go up to the top of the screen and then zip down as a smaller object? I think it did. Huh. Oh, it did. Wow. Okay. That's definitely if I were going to say let's look at this, let's look further into this, that one would definitely be one right there. It appears to be the same object, kind of goes up, this blob goes up and then zips out as a skinny cylindrical type of object. Very very compelling here. Let's see, what do we have here? Very similar. I don't know if this is the same object from the last UFO file dump. This sort of looked like a balloon with something hanging from it. And when I saw this, I was just like, okay, it seems to be that, but it seems to be two different objects. You see, whatever that thing on the bottom is disappears, it kind of reappears. I think that's pretty interesting. Okay, it's a better view. So the bottom object, let's keep an eye on that, right? Because it seems like that just completely disappears and reappears. Does it actually, or let me fast forward through this one a little bit. This is the same video. Just fast forward a little bit. There's a lot of parts where it doesn't seem to have the object in the view. Okay, I think that's it for that video. Okay, what else do we have here? Let's see. Looks like there's some sound here. Play that again. Seems like something shooting away at a high rate of speed. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's once again hard to say, right? Because if you don't have reference to what's happening there, maybe the camera's moving like that. It's hard to say if that's the object moving erratically like that. I would want more information on that, obviously. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, there we go. Something shooting past the screen. Wow. Can't even keep up with it. Whatever that is moving fast. Yeah, they give no data, Lisa. They give no data, which is bad part there. Hey, Lex Diaz, appreciate you coming on in. Just going over the UFO files, just checking out the videos here tonight. Doing a quick run through. Okay, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, that's pretty strange. Let me go ahead and try it. I'm going to load up some more of these videos. Looks like I can only load like 10 at a time, so give me a moment here. Let me get the next set of videos up here. All right, we got that one. And I gotta say, I mean, is it crystal clear 4K video like I'm sure everybody wants to see? No, it's not. However, it does seem like some of this stuff is a little more clear. I will say that. Whatever that means. Oh, let's see. Slowing up a few of these. Give me just a minute here. Okay. All right. Lex Diaz, am I the only one who thinks these are just scraps from the government? Because I know they have way better stuff than what they're giving us. Yeah, I agree, Lex Diaz. Now, and I want to talk about that too, right? Because I think, I'll just say it now. I think here's what I think about that. Yes, for sure. They have the 4K, super crystal clear, no doubt about it, video. They definitely have it. What I think is happening, because some of these seem to be pretty decent as far as displaying anomalous behavior, and even some of the ones we'll see coming up here, like the one weird one that everybody's talking about. It's a pretty close up image. So I think what they're doing is they're giving you enough. They're giving you enough for you to be like, okay, that's weird. Human beings likely didn't make that, to kind of bring you to to that conclusion, to come to the conclusion that, whoa, that could be a UFO. You know, that it's not behaving like anything that man has made. So if they do that, then they don't necessarily have to give you the 4K, because they're giving you enough to convince you that what you're looking at is anomalous, And for a lot of people, that might be enough. For a lot of people, that might be enough for them to just come to the conclusion that there's stuff up there that isn't made by humans, and those people may be satisfied with that, right? And then that way, if that ends up being the result, then they don't have a need to go ahead and release the 4K stuff. Because they say, okay, we've given you, sort of good stuff. We've given you some C grade stuff. It wasn't total trash. We gave you some stuff that really made you think. And I think that might be the play, right? Because if they do that, there's going to be a lot of people that are weirded out by some of the stuff in some of these releases, to the point to where their understanding of something out there being non-human will be verified on a lower level. And then if they can achieve that, then they don't have to release the 4K stuff, right? Because to them, it'll be like overkill. They're giving you enough to know it's anomalous and weird, but not the stuff where you can see in the craft or get a realization of who's controlling what, right? I feel like that's what's happening here, because this release is decent. And it's like, okay, well, why go that far but not go all the way? And I think that would be the reason why. I could be wrong. Lisa Piper says breadcrumbs. Yes. And bigger breadcrumbs, though. Enough to let you in. So for instance, seeing someone who robbed a bank on surveillance film, if the camera is good enough, you can tell that person is the person they arrested. So there's no argument. Versus if you had a 4K video of that person, then obviously that's undeniable. But even a surveillance camera that has high enough resolution is going to be good enough for you to be satisfied that what you're looking at is the person that they ended up arresting. And then they don't have to show you anything. It's that same idea. If you understand what I'm saying there, I think that's kind of what's going on. Lisa Piper is supposed to mollify. Okay, there we go. Lex Diaz, they don't want to scare us, I guess. I mean, they could just roll out a reptilian and mantis and really freak us out. Yeah, I don't think they'll get to that point. That 4K stuff, I don't know if they'll ever do that. I think they're trying to do a little bit of both. They're trying to give you enough, but not give it all. And I don't think the all part is going to ever come. But let's go ahead and get into this next lot of videos. Let's see. This was the next one up here. Let's see what they gave us. Once again, a lot of stuff is no audio. There's no blocked off. Well, maybe the blocks on the side or the blocked out information. I don't know. But let's see what they gave us. There is obviously one that's really, really weird. I can't wait till we get to that one, because I think that one's actually pretty scary. Okay. See, another white dot. See? Those are all one category. All the white dots that they show. And truthfully, I even think the gimbal. I think that formation we saw earlier is the same thing that you hear the pilots talking about in the gimbal when they say it's a fleet. It's a fleet. They're going against the wind. I think those are the same objects. I felt like that since I had my sighting. Wow. Is that terrain in the background? Or is that just clouds? Okay, those are just clouds. But I think these white objects are all in one bucket. Every time you see one of these, it's just the same type of object. I think they all go into one bucket and are used for one purpose. Okay. All right. That's that one. Here's the next video. Wow. Now that one, right? This was one that I saw earlier, and this one kind of blew my mind. Look at that. So is that going across the flight path of whatever is taking this image? That's the thing I'd want to know. Is that flying across the flight path, right? Is that going across? Because if it is, it's going very fast, right? But if you're going towards it, even at an angle, if you're moving towards it, then it could seem like it's going faster than it appears on video. That's some of the things that people like to, use the numbers and the data to figure out, because, it would show that the object is actually not moving as fast as it looks. It appears to be flying across the flight path, though. See, that's if that's the case, then you can pretty much gauge that that thing is going super fast. That's crazy. Let me go ahead and get that up here. Play that again. This was one of the ones, top three for me out of this release. This one right here. Gone, gone. Yeah, yeah. I mean, right? So if you're walking into this and you've never seen a UFO, you're not into the subject, you're just coming in, you see that, they slowed it down. You can see that it's not a missile. You can see that it's not shaped like any sort of aircraft that is known. So you can gauge all that from that video and you can see it going super fast. Also the videos of the things, and I don't think we've gotten to the object that moves at these right angles that kind of, does one of the five observables. I think we're going to get to that here in just a minute, but that's why I was surprised by this release. I was definitely surprised by this release. And that's what leads me to that conclusion that it appears that they're trying to give you enough to know that yes, there's stuff up here not made by us, but we're just not going to show you with clarity what it is. Okay. All right. That was it for that video. Let me play it one more time. It's pretty short. It appears to zip off at a high rate of speed. They're going to call that the rubber ducky. That looks like a rubber duck. Yeah, a lot of things look like things, right? What do you call that, pareidolia? Doesn't mean it's a rubber duck, right? So, have a lot of people just trying to do that. All right, next video. This one I remember, I think, from 1996. I think you're going to see what I saw when I looked at this earlier. You're going to see these objects moving across the screen, kind of zipping by. From 1996. Right there at the top, you saw that object. Right there. Oh, wow. Let's go back a little bit, see if we can catch that. Okay, obviously the two black dots there in the middle in a semi formation. And when you look at that, so here's where things get, and I'm going to talk about this on the next video when I do the comparison on my sighting and some of what was released here. But these are in this still image, egg-shaped objects, teardrop shape, egg shape, oblong shape objects. I think these are, I don't know if this is like the radar that shows like white hot, black hot sort of thing, but I think that's what's going on here. But I can almost guarantee you that these are the white objects, that these are the same white objects that you end up seeing on these other videos. And if that's the case, if these white objects are oblong in shape, sort of like an egg, this is one of the reasons why I feel like the objects that Ross Coulthart released when Jake Barber came out and they had that retrieval of the egg-shaped object that everybody made a joke about. I would almost bet everything that the object in that video they show being retrieved is real, for one, and is one of these white sort of oblong objects that you see in the sky. Because what you're going to find out on this next video that the one that I put out after this, is that these things are everywhere. These white objects, they are everywhere. And as you saw in the earlier video, which we'll get to we're going to play again a little after we run through these, there are so many of these things. So if you have just the odds of having so many of these individual white objects, the odds of one of them not working and maybe falling out the sky are just very high. That's why when that video came out, when they showed that retrieval, and people were just like, oh, it's an egg, it's an egg. The way I looked at it was, if someone was going to fake a UFO retrieval video, why would they make it in a simple egg-shaped white object? Why would they do that when they could have made it something that you would automatically associate with the UFO, like a disc shape or, a weird metallic angled shaped object, something that you would immediately click and say, oh, UFO. Why would they make it a white egg shaped sort of object? That leads me to believe that video, if it's been corroborated, chain of custody sort of thing, only Ross Coulthart knows that at this point, I would beg to bargain or bet that is an authentic retrieval of objects that look like these, that are oblong shaped objects. And as you see through all the UFO files, most of the sightings and most of the videos they've released have been of these same sort of objects, these white oblong shaped objects. And in my own sighting, the things that I filmed were all oblong shaped, identical looking objects. They appeared to be metallic. And once again, I'm going to do a video that covers all that. Joe Monk as well, pointing out that Lonnie Zamora back in, I think, 64, saw the egg-shaped object that landed, extraterrestrials got out. So the egg is very important to it, and I think, here's what I'll say. When I put out my video and Mick West looked at it, he said birds, right? One of his famous quick responses, birds, balloons. He said birds. So not even taking a moment to kind of do research and kind of look at what history has shown, what there's other examples of, and I kind of do a good job of putting that into one video, which again, I'm going to do that on the next video. But I think it just points out the fact that there are times where you have something that you should be looking at, more in depth, but someone will come along and try to just write it off. And if enough people believe what that person says, then you take something that is very valid and you kind of just throw it away. So if we come to the conclusion at some point here in the future that the egg-shaped object that was shown during the Ross Coulthard interview with Jake Barber, if it comes to light that that was real, think of how many people just disregarded it, joked it off, disregarded it, and kind of threw it away. I think there's a lot of that going on with a lot of these things that are being seen. A lot of people are just trying to explain them away as something prosaic, something mundane. And I think these are, it goes against what we should be doing as far as like analyzing the data. I don't think there's enough of that happening right now. But once again, two very strange objects right here. I'm satisfied with this and the release. Yeah, Roger Murray, Mork and Mindy egg-shaped UFO. And you got to wonder where they came up with that, where the, person who created that, why did they think of egg? I think I saw an interview where the guy who created that show claimed, it had nothing to do with anything he had been told. He just had this idea to do that. So very coincidental, but I don't think related. Or at least the director stated that it wasn't related. Well, I'll put it there. All right, so let's move to the next video. Some of these are very short. Some of these a couple minutes long. So I think this one's kind of short. We'll take a look. Okay, did that object disappear? It appeared to. All right, that one's over. Let's move to the next one here. Think that one was over already? Let me play that again. Okay, it's about a 5-second video. Okay. Not clear. Not really a good video. Can't really tell what's going on there. Let me remove that. And let me load up a few more here. I think there's a few more left. Okay, I think that one, let's see. I think there's like 3 more actual videos, and then we can see what about this NASA audio. See if there's anything to that. All right, let's take a look at this one here. Okay, that's the one we just watched. Let me remove that. Is this the... I think this is the one... This is the one that's really strange, right? Yeah, this is one of the ones... This is probably number one. Because the clarity, to me, even in this filter, lets you know that this... What is that? I just paused it. It's not in a good spot. Let me see if I can get a clear pause on that. What the? I don't even want to cuss, but what in the HE double hockey sticks is that? Okay, I think that's a good pause. What in the world is that? Deadfish says chunks of crystals without the plasma on them. Okay, I'm open to it. I'm open to it. I'm open to it. What I will say, what I will say is this. I could see this as being, as far as craft with something in it. Like out of all the things that they've shown, I could imagine this being something, depending on how big this is. Like we don't know how big this thing is, right? So this thing could be huge, and it looks more like a craft, although like not like one that we, or when you think about UFOs or aliens, this does look like potentially some sort of physical metallic sort of craft, like gunmetal gray. You know, I could see this as being a craft potentially. We don't know what it is, but it's giving sort of craft type vibes. If it's big enough, something with potentially living things in it, either that, or I'm even open to this being the thing, the whatever, the entity. I'm even open to this thing being the actual entity when you think of like Nope, right? Nope, where the craft is actually an entity itself. You know, it's one of the two. It's definitely not something that a human being has made. Looking at this, the way that it behaves, and we'll play the video back, but just getting a good look at it, I think, this is one of the ones that skeptics are going to have a hard time trying to find an explanation for what this is. I don't think there's I don't think there's a world where a skeptic is going to be able to look at this and explain this away. And I'm with you, Deadfish, on crystals. I'm with you on that, because of the angular and sort of rigid sort of structure and appearance, right? Is the way that crystals grow. Like if you've seen them in caves, right? Crystal formations, and they're usually jagged and rigid, sort of like what this kind of looks like. So I'm with you on that. It gives off that sort of appearance, but it also appears to be like, think of like the what people have said, was it the black light satellite or whatever it's called. I forget what it's called. That this is kind of what they say that it looks like, right? The images that I've seen, they kind of show it to look something like this. I would say, I would gamble that this is craft, manned, or the entity itself, right? Pareidolia could kind of make you go down a lot of paths because really, pareidolia says, and for those, pareidolia is kind of like the trick your eyes play on you when you look at things like clouds and see birds or rabbits in the clouds or whatever. This kind of looks like pareidolia is showing me like a face, I'm not saying Black Knight satellite. Yes, you're right, Roger, but that's what I was talking about. Black Knight satellite. When they show images of Black Knight satellite, this is kind of what they depicted as looking like, a sort of rigid sort of object. Uh, but it looks like the face of a dragon or something right there in the upper left, right? And that's just, I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying pareidolia would take your mind down that path. But just looking at it as a structure, it would appear to be like a structured craft, which is not what you normally see when you're looking at these objects. They're usually the little white objects, the little white spheres, the oblong shaped objects that we talked about before. But this looks like a physical craft type of object. And if I were to try to guess, I would say for sure, I would not say humans made this. And I would gamble to say that it's craft that something is in. That doesn't mean anything, right? Because it could obviously not be that, but that's what it's giving off. So let's take a look at the full motion video on this now that we've got a good look at it and see how it moves. Yeah, that's giving craft. Out of all the objects that that not just through the UFO dumps that they've shown, but just out of all the objects that we've seen out there, just out in the community, obviously in motion, this is the only one that I've seen that gives me craft sort of vibes, right? Everything else feels like probes. Everything else, so just imagine a world where this being the craft and it releases these little white objects out into the atmosphere as probes, and that's kind of what you see moving around uh, in these other videos. It's what it feels like, right? Obviously, we don't have the answers, but that's definitely what it feels like. Let's move to the next video here. Okay, anticlimactic. Looks like that one was over pretty quick. Nothing much to that. Another white object. Once again, I think a lot of people are like, oh man, another white object. Oh man, another little dot. I think the value there is that you now know that there are a particular class of objects, which are these white spherical oblong shaped dot sort of objects, that these are in their own category as commonly being seen as evident in all these videos, plus the ones that are out there in the community. And I think you can walk away from this knowing that there is this particular class of object. Let me see. Let me remove that. Okay, and I think that is that it for the video? I think we have some NASA stuff. This sort of ends up being kind of long. I want to check. Hopefully, there's a couple of bite-size things we can look at here. Let me see how long these are.
You're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, I guess we got 3 mics. One for each. What mics do we need? Morning, Charles.
Hello. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Fine.
Good.
You're fine.
Good.
There's no information attached to this video to know who this is on tape. So hopefully,
Yeah, we tried to go through this, your debrief last night, the printed one. This all the stuff that you guys did on tape, your tech debrief, to get those so that we try and not repeat, only amplify stuff. And so we tried to come up, we didn't have much time to do that, but I hope we got most of that stuff. And
Okay.
if you think we're hitting some area that you think, is a conflict with that, well, yell, tell us. And
we'll let this
Alrighty.
play for a few minutes. Hopefully, they get right into
some of
something.
the things,
If
some
not,
things that you guys said yesterday.
we'll move to the
when I
next
was
one
at
here.
the Project debrief that probably bear on some of these too.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ed.
Appears to be some sort of debrief. Not really sure who is involved. Like I say, hopefully they get to it pretty quick. If not, you can listen to the full thing in the UFO files release. So we'll let it go for a couple minutes, see what we get.
I don't know. Whether they're hot or not. Just found them on the floor.
Before we, start asking questions, identify yourself, so
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
that are transcribing know our voices,
Yeah.
say who these people are. In case we need certain things.
Somebody know about sources of calcium. Sources of. Oh, wait a minute. Calcium in the diet.
All right, I'm trying to skip. I'm gonna skip a little bit here. See if we get them talking about something.
Hard to get back together again after you get out of here to do that sort of thing. Everybody says they'd like to know what happened to them. We could do that to you in here and tell you that, and here are the samples that were used to do that, so you have some idea, understanding about how that happened. Would that be worthwhile to you?
Yeah, the comment was made not from a point of view, a specific complaint about our flight, but just,
In
I
general.
think, a continuing understanding between the two directorates.
We agree.
Ahead of time, because it's the kind of thing, well, just like with other scientific experiments, unless the crew understands the reasons and agrees with it, the thing isn't going to be a successful experiment.
Amen.
So, the comment wasn't made from a point of criticizing anything specifically about our protocol at all. Just to reiterate what
Yeah.
everybody ought to know but doesn't always think about.
Yeah, good.
And I think, Chuck, also, probably the last few weeks before flight is not the time to try to brief the crew on the medical requirements. At that time, their thoughts are quite a bit on other things, and perhaps it needs to come earlier than that.
That's a good point.
I think each one of us is concerned with ourselves medically, as the medical effects, the physiology of flight, et cetera, et cetera. But the last few weeks, you just can't get yourself cranked up to really think about those things, except for the things that are going to happen to you, so you can be mentally prepared for it.
Right.
I think I may have precipitated that comment, at least when we got to that area and started that, about,
Okay.
and
Roger Murray is stating that this audio is Apollo 13 Commander Jim Lovell Jr. I don't have any information to validate that or verify that, but if that's true, Roger Murray, appreciate the information. And it seems like they're kind of just going over some general stuff. I'm going to skip ahead quite a bit, just see if we can catch them in the middle of a conversation here. Once again, if not, I'll end up posting this full audio here on the page as its own separate video. I'll do that for each of the NASA videos and then make a compilation of the UFO videos. Roger Murray says he knows the voice. Awesome. Okay. That's enough for me, Roger Murray. That's enough for me. Let's see if we can catch him in the middle of a conversation here.
Well, I think I kind of decided I was going to try to do everything I could to end up in as good shape as I could at the end of the mission, which included keeping the fluid intake and the food intake up, as well as the exercise. And that's generally what we tried to do.
You did a great job of it, I might
We
add.
had to try to get 2 juices per meal.
Okay, all right. Gave it a shot. Not really anything we could catch. Maybe there's some nuggets in there. We'll have to spend more time sitting down with that. Let me move on to the next NASA, and hopefully they're not all this long, but I guess that maybe that's okay. Let me see that this one's pretty long. So what we'll do is we'll just put it up here. Maybe we can catch them in the middle of something juicy. If not, we'll move on. Let's see what this one is talking about here.
Most of my streaks appeared to be on the periphery, and for the first several days I got the impression that this direction was predominant. Later on it appeared that I don't think I could get that good a pattern, but that was my first impression for the first couple of days.
The next question is, was there any apparent direction of propagation? And could you tell it was coming from one side to the other, or was it just a flash?
Several times you did say from the left to the right, or something like that.
Tried to correlate it, but in my case, I couldn't really correlate a pattern out of it.
Yeah, I would think that the time period in which we tried to report them streak by streak, flash by flash, was representative. And it was my feeling that it was generally random during that time period, and therefore generally random throughout the times that we were noticing them.
No, I meant, could you detect that it was moving from one side to the other in general?
Yes.
It was moving in
A specific
Oh, and
flash, that's correct.
a specific flash, yes.
But you could see it as a travel from one side to the
Yes.
other. You
I
really
think we
could.
tried to report it that way, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
did report it.
that's the way
That's
the
what's
impression we
puzzling
got.
is because it happens, it has to be very fast, you know.
Isn't that question kind of redundant then?
Don't believe you.
Was there some character to these flashes that had some aspect of direction? I mean, were they all the same rod shaped, or did they have a tail on them?
Well, what I saw, what I reported as a streak was simply that. Now, maybe the way we determined the direction subconsciously was that it was a ball of light moving in a direction, leaving a tail. But I can't say that for sure. All I reported was a streak, and I had the impression of it moving from one direction to the other. And I reported that direction, and I can't clarify it much more than that.
Do you want to?
Maybe while you're asking a question, we just tell us the lights. I think they can see this in the darkened room, but just try. The idea is to try to see whether this is what you saw or similar to it.
I think you need to like that a bit.
Well, can you see anything?
Yeah, except that's what it looked like, except it was traveling. In other words, it started out and it definitely progressed across
You got
the field of view.
Direction of motion per individual.
Was it that bright?
Yeah, except you're not traveling. It was traveling.
You saw it as a point that made the
see,
streak.
I never did see 2 simultaneously either.
Neither did I.
Now you have 2 streaks on that. I never saw that.
At one time you said you saw a semicolon shaped thing.
So what?
A semicolon shaped object. This was in the first report. Before the
I never did.
If I reported it, that's what I saw, but I don't remember it.
did you see anything that looked like this?
All I can say is whatever was reported is what I saw.
No, we discussed the various shapes prior to flight, and I concentrated pretty hard on trying to see the shapes, and I think as I reported, it was either a streak and just a rather simple streak, or it was a flash and rather a simple flash, nothing too exotic about it, and on a more rare one would be maybe just a pinpoint a light for an instant, rather than get the idea of a flash. So it would just be a pinpoint for a second and it would be gone. But that was more rare than the other two.
By a flash, you mean a distributed sort of thing?
Yeah, I meant, like watching an explosion, just a ball versus just a steady dot. Yes.
Was it like this at all? Can you see that?
No?
Can you see this one? I can see it.
Can't see it.
We're not getting any light.
I don't think it's lighting.
Oh, there was something just as you turned it there.
Okay, I can see
I
that.
mean, multiple,
Well, this one.
Okay, that to me would be the pinpoint that I'm describing. The eruption, or the nova as we call them, would be more of an explosion.
Yeah.
How about this?
Yeah.
Were there more dots than that?
Well, you've got a very, very bright center and a diffused edge. I would say that the impression I had was you would have an area like that indicating a blow up, but the center wasn't predominantly that bright. But that's getting closer to what we would call, or what I would refer to as a nova or a flash.
It's not as bright as what I call a nova, yeah.
Ed, was your nova an explosion like this or a discrete bright flash?
No, it was, what I called a nova was more of a blob that seemed to start with that and kind of expand.
more diffused.
Yeah, and more diffused as the time went on.
But brighter than that?
Brighter than that, yes. That's what I'd call a flash or a star.
Here again, you've got too much contrast between the center and the diffused area there, though.
That's some light.
Also, your time frame that you're flashing, that's too long. It was faster than that.
But am I right, Ed, from what you just said, that when you said flash, you really meant a star and not what you just described?
I think I almost tended to use flash and star interchangeably.
That's not true for you.
No, when I flash, nova to me were essentially the same thing. The only distinction I make is the pinpoint versus an explosion.
Okay, I think what Stu was calling a pinpoint was about what I'd call a star or a flash. And a nova, to me, was a much bigger, brighter thing.
Okay, I got a couple of quick ones. First of all, the cabin lighting. Exactly, was it completely dark, or were there some instrument lights still on?
Absolutely dark.
Absolutely dark. Okay.
Wait a minute.
Well, yeah, there is.
You're talking about the time period that we ran this quantitative report, right?
Right.
So, completely dark.
Okay. And did you have your eyes closed most of the time, or were they open in the dark cabin?
Mine was
we had
closed.
both.
Yeah,
I had both.
even though we had the window shades on, when we roll around so the sun would hit some of the windows, there'd be some light seepage around, and we were aware of that ahead of time, so during that time period, at least I made an attempt to keep my eyes closed,
Yeah.
open otherwise, and of course, we closed our eyes when Ed flipped his flashlight on. But generally speaking, eyes were open.
No, mine was almost closed all the time. I was floating down the corner of the LEB, but I kept my eyes closed because I didn't know when we might roll into the sun, and I didn't want to pick up any light at all.
Okay, the next question on the flashlight was when you shined it in your eyes, what was the approximate duration in each eye? About how many seconds?
Well, I just kind of moved it across for 5 seconds or so. 5 or 6 seconds. It hurt. It was very bright.
And next question on still your orientation in the LEB. You said you were looking toward plus X. Were you across?
I was generally, you know how you have the three couches, and plus X is I was oriented this way with my head looking face up down in this corner.
So your head was in the same direction as it would be if you were on the couch, it just rotated 90
Yes,
degrees.
that's it.
And next question is, in almost every case, you did report that it was in one eye at the other. I believe there's one incident where you had both eyes. And my question is, it may be somewhat redundant, but were you absolutely certain that you could distinguish that it was one eye as opposed to...
Yeah, I felt I was getting more in the left than the right for some reason.
But in fact, you're all heavily biased towards the right on the one on your report.
Really?
Very heavily, like 3 or 4 to 1.
You
I
had
would have
12
sworn that I was biased to the left.
You had 12 right and 6 left, and Al, you had 10 right, 4 left, and of the ones you reported, Stu, you had 6 right and 2 left, and the rest were either no reports or both odd. It was all very heavily biased to the right.
Okay, obviously pretty interesting. What we'll do is I'm going to put that audio, also the previous audio, going to release them as videos so you can come to the page, and when you have time, sit down and listen to the full NASA audio. It's pretty interesting on that debrief on what they saw while out there. It sounds like they were seeing these flashes of light, some with their eyes closed, some with their eyes open. And you just have to, I'm sure, you may get more context as you go further into the audio. Let's see if we can catch them talking about something here on the next NASA audio. I think there's a couple more listed here. So let's see if we can catch him talking about something here. Let's check it out.
We're picking up at 12-0 liftoff rendezvous and dock. And again, where things went nominal, as per the checklist, we're going to get the lunar surface checklist, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to say so. LEM power up and launch prep went well. We did not do the P-22. And everything else just went as advertised on the LEM. She came up and powered up beautifully. Anything in there that's worth going through? Okay, the liftoff was went normal. We got obviously all our pyros, and we lost no changeover in Parker valves or anything.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
To avoid breathing the dust, because I've had the irritation, sinus irritation on the surface.
And the commander kept the helmet on throughout the rendezvous, and docking. I took my gloves off after insertion and left them off. Now, when we started getting prepared, as soon as we were hard docked, the commander took off his helmet. And as I look back at that, because of the dust debris in the LEM spacecraft, I'm sorry I did it. I could have left the helmet on, and I would have had a lot less, not troublesome, but it was just eye and mouth type of irritation. You knew you were in a very heavily infiltrated atmosphere on the LEM because of the lunar dust. Although I don't know how much lunar dust previous flights had, but I think we saved a great deal of grief by taping up, by sweeping all the dust we could find on the floor into the holes and putting our tape covers over those holes. I think that had to help a great deal, because there was an awful lot of dust on the floor that we didn't see. So I had, Commander had his...
Okay, skipping forward some
Circuit
more.
return valve. And when we put our suits on for the EVA the next day, your suits were noticeably wet. And also counterbalance with the beat tool B there, so that we locked the hatch in the open position. So I just shoved it open and went beyond the center position and locked in the open position with no problem. Egress had a tendency, I guess, just like any other thing, it seems like you want to float up, and I had a tendency to float up against the MDC and had to consciously duck and get as close, my face as close as I could to the bottom of the hatch in order to get past get the OPS past the MDC and get on out. TV and DAC installation worked fine. I could hang on with the right hand on the hatch, the great big D handle on the hatch, and with the TV.
All right, sounds procedural. Let's go to the last one here, see if we can just luckily catch a part of the audio where they're talking about something worth hearing as far as anomalies go.
Okay, this is tape number 14, continuation of section 23.0 with Jack Schmidt. Okay, flight data file, CSM. Generally, I have nothing but praise for the flight data file, both vehicles. There was very, very few things that one could have asked for to improve that data file for Apollo 17 at any rate. One comment on the flight plan supplement. We had split pages for a number of the logging, medical and food logging, and that probably was a mistake. I think the idea was fairly good initially, but the pages, we tended to only use that in the book as a whole, and it was a good place to keep them. And also the pages, if you had wanted them split, were too thin to maintain the split, and they tended to fall out of the book. I would recommend either not splitting or having heavier paper if you want them split.
Skip ahead
As
a little
Earth,
bit.
we had only a small crescent of an Earth, and it was not feasible to do any extensive weather observations. I don't know whether I've recorded yet that although we had light flashes just about continuously during the whole flight when you were dark adapted, and I may have even had one which I thought was a flash on the lunar surface during the first rev. That one period of time when we had the blindfolds on for the AlphaMet experiment, there just were no visible flashes. Although that evening, that night, before I went to sleep, I noticed I was seeing the light flashes again. So it just seemed to be that one interval either side of that interval on either side of it where the light flash phenomena was not visible to myself or to the other two crewmen. Lunar orbit, I think the transcript and my crew notebook would cover all the visual sightings that I can remember at this stage without going over it orbit by orbit and feature by feature with the photography, and I think that has to come later. Entry we've covered in the previous briefings, and I think the same goes for landing and recovery. Why don't you stop at a second text? 25.0, pre-mission planning for the LMP. It's hard to think of, once again, of anything that we didn't do right. I'm sure that might have been different had we had problems on the flight, but right, the way the flight went, the total plan, the integration of the mission requirements into that plan, although there were periods of some difficulty pre-flight, particularly in the area of medical requirements, and in some last-minute possible scientific requirements, particularly on the samples, everything seemed to get resolved satisfactorily, as near as I could tell, and I can't think of anything that was not handled very well, and between the people who were levying the requirements and the flight planners in particular, and occasionally when the crew had to be involved, that was handled almost entirely by the support crew, Bob Parker in the science area and Gordy Fullerton and Bob Overmeyer in the operational areas. There were no significant spacecraft changes in the course of our training period. Ron, I guess the biggest single area that took time was one that Ron had to deal with, and that was Lunar Sounder. Most of our ALSEP changes were all taken care of prior to our training, and we had a few minor suggestions that were taken care of early in the training.
All right, Apollo 17, we know is one of the, and we talked about this on a previous show, is one of the missions where they saw things that were anomalous. So we did jump right into a part where he was talking about some flashes on the lunar surface and things that they had seen on the lunar orbit. I wonder if we go back a little bit, right before that, if they're talking more about it. I'm going to jump back a few minutes, see if we can kind of see what he said before that, and see if we can see if we missed anything there.
Okay, 24.0, visual sightings. Well, we've covered the countdown and launch, I think, pretty well in the previous sections. Also powered flight, Earth orbit. I think the transcript would cover the visual sightings that I made with respect to weather and a few geographic observations, and the same would go for the fairly extensive weather observations that I tried to make trans-Earth or trans-lunar. Trans-Earth, we had only a small crescent of an Earth, and it was not feasible to do any extensive weather observations. I don't know whether I've recorded yet that although we had light flashes just about continuously during the whole flight when you were dark adapted, and I may have even had.
Okay, so we heard that. So it's what's funny is, and maybe there's an explanation for it, but when he's talking about these flashes and he talks about lunar orbits, you guys just heard a moment ago, seems like the audio jumps to whatever that next subject was that they ended up speaking about. So don't know if some of the the things that we have heard happened on the flight, during the flight, when he was obviously going through the visual part of the mission. It seems like the audio kind of stopped and jumped into whatever that next topic was. So was that edited out? Obviously something that you'd have to wonder. Flashes on the lunar surface, right? We've heard that meteor impacts, little like micro meteor impacts, can make flashes on the surface of the moon. And but it would be interesting to hear more details, and maybe they do go into more detail later in the audio. Once again, I'll end up posting all of these NASA audios here on the page, so you'll have a nice, concise place to come and listen to all that. And I'm going to listen to them too, see if there's any nuggets that we can pull out of there to see. Seems like some of the audio from the other video that we put on here, they were kind of just going over some of the mission stuff, not really anything juicy, but that seemed pretty juicy. The visual stuff, flashes, is intriguing. The other audio we heard where they talked about seeing flashes, obviously intriguing too. So it'd be cool to listen to those in full to see exactly what it was and kind of line it up to what we have heard about the different things that happened on these Apollo missions. And Roger Murray pointed out that last audio there was from Apollo 17, which was the last, as far as we know, manned mission to the moon. And we have a list of, we did a show actually, if you go back and look at our Artemis video, where we went ahead and went over like the Mercury, the Gemini, and the Apollo missions that had all reported some weird activity when either orbiting the moon or from the lunar surface. So it'd be kind of cool to kind of corroborate some of that stuff, maybe with some of this audio. It wouldn't surprise me if those things were left out of the audio for obvious reasons. So, again, just look out for those. I'm going to put those out a little bit later tonight. I'll edit them or kind of put them together and put them out in the video. Let's go back. So before we get out of here, and this is simply just to watch, check out the latest dump in the UFO files, UFO file dump number 4, which is what this is. I had a couple slides here just from what we looked at on the video. So I'll bring these up, kind of just flipping through some of the objects that we saw, this anomalous thing, this really weird shaped object that was floating across the water. We had this, again, I think this split into 2 objects, or this is 2 objects that are just really close together. Again, these white oblong shaped objects, not necessarily, I wouldn't say Tic Tac, even though Tic Tac would be shaped the same way essentially. But I think, leaning more into maybe egg shaped. And I think that's very important to kind of keep in the back of your mind, that some of these things are oblong or egg shaped, because I think I think it matters, and I think it'll matter more with maybe some of the things that we see later down the line. This object here, which is a formation of a bunch of those little white objects, is what this is. And they're in my sighting, once again, there is a strip in the sky, and I broke it down frame by frame, so I have to just put all that stuff together. But there is a part of my video that I took, and I didn't notice this until I broke it down into frames, that there is a particular part of the sky, and it was clear blue sky on this day, no clouds at all, clear blue sky for my UFO sighting. And there is a zigzag sort of, seemed to be, I don't know if it was I don't know what it was. It was a zigzag shaped piece in the sky, along with these 47 objects that are just kind of moving and doing this weird thing together in a formation. And when this zoomed in, this when I said, I got it. This is it. So obviously this object here, which I think is, I would say is craft-like. It seems to be like a super solid sort of object. Seems to be metallic. You can see the sun shining off of it on that particular side of it. So it appears to be a physical craft of some nature. And if I'm to guess, if I were to guess, this would be craft, potentially with something in it, controlling it. Out of all the things we've seen, I think this is one where you could be like, yeah, that I put that in the craft category. And that's a close-up image of it. Let me just bring it back up here for everybody to see. I mean, that's crazy. Let me go back one. Okay, you can't really see it. But that, pretty rigid, 3-dimensional, seems to be physical craft, and a pretty good image of it. That's one thing I'll say. I was shocked. I think we've seen this before. I think they showed this before, or this has been out there. But when they zoomed in on it, and you were able to, even though it's in this filter or through whatever lens they're using, you can still gather that this is 3-dimensional. You can still gather, you can almost touch it, right? It feels like if you were to see this in 4K, it would probably scare everyone. This object in 4K would probably shock the world, whatever this is. If it's big, I think this one image right here, if they were able to, someone had this in 4K, this would be catastrophic. You talking catastrophic disclosure? I think that would be catastrophic disclosure if this were to be released in 4K. So we had that. And then we had this. This is, and I'm going to do a separate video on this, so we're going to get ready to get out of here. Danny Hawk said, I would faint probably. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. This is what Danny Hawk is talking about. This image right here, this craft, 3D, three-dimensional. You can see the sides. I don't know, you can't see right there where if that were a face right there, which I don't think it is, and it's pareidolia. But if you look in the upper left corner where that light spot is, where the sun is shining off of that, you can tell that that's three-dimensional, as well as every surface that the sun is shining off of. So you can gather that this is a structure sort of type of object. Now, if you see something different, let me know, but it would appear that the sun is shining from the left onto this object, and you're getting sunshine in those light spots. That's what I'm seeing. Maybe you see something else. But if that's the case, it would indicate that this is definitely 3D. So this, once again, this is what's going to lead me into my video. So as you can see here, this is a line of objects. This is not just like the line isn't the actual craft. These are individual objects that make this line up. And you can see there's one hanging back right there in the middle of the screen. So out of formation, or whatever you want to call it, these are individual objects. So one place where you can go see something very similar to this is if you go watch Caroline Corey's Tear in the Sky. There's the part where they find the tear in the sky, right? Where they find this little, almost a hole type area in the sky, and it has all these little dots in it. If you don't remember, go back and watch it. There's a part in the documentary where they end up finding this hole almost in the sky, which they were thinking or saying maybe portal. I'm not going to go that far. This is to say that. But I will say that there were all these little specks of these little white specks that very much look like this here. Now I put this next to just a screen capture of part of my sighting. And when you think about sightings, if you've seen enough of them out there, you don't really get this many objects at one time. And then in formation like this, right? So this was a screen capture from my sighting. I want to put this up here. So this above is a screen capture from the video that I took. So I actually saw these things with my bare eye, and these things were oblong shaped. They were metallic because the sun was shining off of them. And they all had these little black, I described them as like pipe-shaped objects sticking out the bottom. They were all identical. In this video, and I don't know how many are in this frame right here, but you can count 47 of them. And then in different parts of the video, some of these disappear, like right before your eyes as they're flying across the sky. They disappear. They behave almost like they're alive. So when the government released this image, I said, okay. I knew this. I knew it was a matter of time before they released what I saw. And they've already released that before, because the individual white objects, once again, I'm under the belief, based on my experience from what I've seen with my own eyes and what I've recorded, that those individual white objects are what makes up this formation here. And one question that I posed, because I put a video, once again, I put this out on Twitter, and I had Mick West and everybody look at it. I did a video on it a few years ago. I've done a few videos, and I'm going to do another one. But I asked a question of why would what is the need for there to be so many of them together in one place? Like, why? What is the reason that you would have this many objects together in one place? Like, what is the purpose of that? What is their intent? Like, when they get together like this, or they have these things come together like this, what is the intent for them to do that? It's a question that could be take you down a dark hole, really, because it's like when we see our craft, human-made craft, in formations like this, or formations together like this, is usually never for a good reason. I mean, for a good purpose. It's usually for, some negative reason, right? War related, conflict sort of related. So you got to ask yourself, why would they form themselves in a formation like this? Those are the answers that we need to know. That's why we get together and have these conversations, because these are the questions that need to be answered. Yeah, they're weird stuff up there. Yeah, they're not ours. Yeah, they're from somewhere else. But what do they want? Why are they here? And why do they get together like this? What are they doing when they do this? Is this a show of force? Is it, when we do it, it's a show of force, right? So what is this? What is this? And why would I capture the same thing? This is 4 years ago going on. And when you see the video, which I already have it on my channel if you go back and watch it, but I have a more comprehensive one that I put together that connects all the dots. But when you see these things in this formation as they're moving through the sky, it is intimidating. It's like overkill. It's like, what's the purpose? And I think these are the parts of the conversation that we need to have, because as Alpine Fur says, the government's treating us like little children. And here's the thing. People don't like to talk about that part of the conversation. We have video of us firing Hellfire missiles on them. Why? Why do we do that? We have reports from other individuals of them doing things to us. So if you have examples of a conflict going back and forth, where we definitely have the Hellfire video, so that right there shows conflict between us and them for whatever reason. Maybe they flew over a sensitive area, and this is what we had to do to kind of make them go away. Could be simple as that. Or they could have done something prior to the missile being fired, which initiated the conflict, right? We don't know. The government knows, the Department of Defense, the DOD, all these guys, they know the reason why they had to fire on that UFO. There's been unprovoked times where I always go back to what the Tom DeLonge thing, if you ever watched the Steve-O interview that they did, where in that interview, Tom DeLonge talks about over in Italy, where the authorities are there, were having these houses catching on fire on their cliffside. And what they realized was there were these UFOs out on the water that were like shooting what they called, this is according to Tom DeLonge, these energy weapons towards the shore. And these houses were catching on fire. As the story goes, as he says, the government flew out there on a civilian helicopter, and as they got over the water, civilian helicopter, he says a USO popped up out the water and fired on the helicopter and went back down into the water. Did that happen? I don't know. There's been the reports back in, was it Turkey, back in the 70s, where the pilot was ordered to fire on the UFO. So there's incidents and times where we tried to do something to them, They tried to do something to us. And so when you put all that into a bag and then you see these things that are not from here in formations like this, then you have to ask yourself, why? Why? Once again, I filmed the thing on top, which is definitely what you're seeing down here on the bottom. The objects I filmed on top, clear blue skies, as we're filming them, they all disappeared at once. All 47 objects disappeared into thin air right on video. And, you know, once again, you have to start asking questions. And this is the reason why we do this show. It was the Iran incident. I thought it was Turkey. Could have been, I was thinking Iran, but okay, so it was Iran. September 1976. So it's even believed that Roswell, maybe we did, you know, unintentionally or intentionally brought down the Roswell craft. We don't know. That's just things people say. However, I think we can document at least a few different times with certainty where we did something to them, they did something to us. And like I said, once again, when you see numbers like this, why are they showing force together like that in one place? This is right over my house. I'm in Southern California, probably 70 miles from Vandenberg, probably in the other direction, 70 to 100 miles from, about 50, 60, 70 miles from Edwards Air Force Base. So this has been Southern California, as you know, is where the Tic Tac was seen. I'm about 120, 130 miles from Catalina Island, where they did tear in the sky and filmed all those objects in the sky. This is a hot spot, and I captured these it was 108 degrees this day, about 12 noon, a little after noon, and very hot. And I was called outside because my girl saw something weird in the sky. I went out there. These objects you see up top were in a ball. They were clustered in a ball, and they were kind of just like mosquitoes, just doing this in a ball, just going in and out, in and out, in and out. Went and ran and grabbed my camera. By the time I grabbed it, came back outside, they were flying directly overhead. And I'm filming them, and I'm also looking at them, and I'm like, what in the hell is that? Like, what are those? These spherical objects, each identical, with these black pipe-like things sticking out the bottom. More to come on that, because I have done very deep research on other things that connect the dots for this. It's going to be a great show. So make sure you stay subscribed, hit notification bell on this channel, because that one's coming. And now that the government has finally released video that I knew they had, that depicted the things that I took video of, I knew that they were aware that these particular type of objects. And the thing is that you're going to find out that these are pretty common, as shown in all the other releases with the little white objects, the individual 1, 2, 3 objects. These are probably the most common things that are up there, are the things that I filmed, and those individual things. And that's why 90%, or I'd say 75% of the videos they've released have been of those same objects. So putting that all together, we're definitely going to get into some really good stuff as far as that goes. So just wanted to show that. Once again, this is image of what I captured. And when you see them in motion, it's crazy. When you see them in motion, it is just mind-blowing. I'll never forget this day. Thank you, government, for validating that with that video, because that's exactly what these are. And yeah, I think that's UFO confirmation. For me, it was confirmation from the start, because all those objects disappearing in thin air, I already knew what I saw. But to have finally the government release a video that depicted what it was that I filmed, that was the bonus. If this video was clear, the one that they took, if they showed you the 4K version of that video, you would see these being individual objects, and you would see them just as I filmed them. So with that being said, guys, we're going to get ready to wrap this show up. This is another Friday night call-in show. We have the after hour show, which is tomorrow night. And let me go ahead and move this out the way real quick because we have our guest coming in. You got to know this guy. He's been a part of a lot of different TV shows, Discovery Channel shows, David H. Altman. And we're going to be talking aliens and pop culture, science fiction versus science fact, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So make sure that you guys are here for that. And let me see, what else do we have? Memberships available. Become a social soldier today. You can do that anytime in the description of any of our videos. Just goes to help sports show. Helps us put on better and better and better shows, better quality shows. I would love to hire an editor and things like that and really take this stuff to the next level. So any support is appreciated. Super chat, super thanks. Also just showing up and just, being a viewer is also appreciated. Make sure you share this. Once again, on social media, all you have to do is copy the link to the show, post it in your social media, tell people, hey, come on over and have these conversations. These are conversations we're all going to have together at some point. Maybe we're ahead of the curve right now as far as the type of stuff we talk about and the way we cover stuff, but it's going to get to a point to where everyone needs to be having these type of conversations. So we'd appreciate you guys sharing this stuff out there. Also, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if you have not already, please consider becoming a subscriber today. I know we were at 700, like right below or above. Let's keep that going. Let's get to 1,000 and more as we get this word out there. We'd appreciate any help you put out there. This is always the important one. This is the motto of the channel. That we do what we do here for the positive progression of humanity. Everybody you see down there at the bottom, that's everyone out there. That's you, that's me, that's everyone. It's humanity. It's the reason why we do this, because we have a chance to change the direction that we go in this moment of disclosure. So with that being said, guys, I'm about to get up out of here the same way I came up in here. It's another Friday night live call-in show. Appreciate you guys all coming in and being a part of this. Let's go ahead and get ready to close this thing out. Have a great rest of your night, guys, and take care.